Hey, it's Chuck Armstrong with Loudwire Nights, and this is Loudwire Nights On Demand. We caught up with Dorothy Martin to talk all about Dorothy's brand new song, Mud, and what it is pointing to. This conversation was so much fun, man. I hope you enjoy it. This first aired on Monday, July 22nd. Here you go. I'm so happy to be hanging with tonight's special guest. She is the front woman and namesake for the absolute powerhouse known as Dorothy, and right now we are celebrating the release of the incredible new song, Mud. Hanging with us tonight is the one and only Dorothy Martin. Dorothy, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Chuck. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So here we are. Mud is done. It's out. The world is listening to it. How does it feel to have this song wrapped up and out?
It feels so good. You know, when I heard it for the first time, Scott Stevens played me the track. I just lost my crap. I just started jumping up and down, and I was like, this is the summer rock party anthem. I'm so excited to put it out. I wanted to record it that day, and we did. So it was a lot of fun to make this song.
That's awesome. Well, I love that. Well, you know, Scott Stevens is a really good friend of our show. We have just loved getting to know him and talking about all things Xyz, but also talking about all things the bands that he works with, like you, and his, you know, having his hands on Mud. And so I love hearing that.
Oh, he's wonderful. He's seriously my favorite producer. And, you know, he came in towards the end of Gifts from the Holy Ghost and dropped Rest in Peace in my lap. And so that's when I was like, okay, my next record, I want this guy to produce all of it. So that's what happened.
Awesome. I love that. I love hearing that. Well, listen, I know it hasn't been that long, but it does feel like it's been a minute since we've had new music from you. Though I know, you know, you keep very busy, whether it's, you know, doing whatever you do, being a special guest on some absolutely killer tracks, all of that. Are you ready for this next full-length album? Like, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. We got 10 killer songs. The album The Way drops this fall. You know, before I got to stay busy with a lot of collaborations and you know, a little bit of touring, playing festivals and one-offs and whatnot, but I'm looking forward to dropping this album, and I think the top of the year will be on the road quite a bit. So I'm excited about that.
I love hearing that. You know, this song Mud, it covers a lot of ground, and you know, whether that's musical style or finding you screaming for the first time, which is absolutely badass. But it does, it's kind of hard to fit into one box, which I really enjoy. Is that a good representation of what's to come on The Way?
You know what? I think that the genre, if I had to make up a word, is something like heavy metal cowgirl. It's got it's got a little bit of an outlaw vibe, which I have had, you know, for a while. It's just because I grew up listening to country and rock and all that kind of stuff. But like Gun in My Hand has a little bit of that vibe. So I wanted to revisit that on this record. It's definitely the heaviest album, but it's also such a cool mix up of different things. And I mean, we just threw the kitchen sink at Mud. I mean, it has a trap beat and it's got screams. It's kind of like a Wild West ride.
That's a good way to put it. I mean, the first time I heard it, yeah, it kind of just knocked me back. And then I listened to it again, and you hear something else, and then you listen to it again, and you hear something else, and you catch those different things that you guys threw in, and but it all comes together, like it all works. And I don't know, there's just something special about that. And I think, listen, I think in today's day and age, people don't care about formats or genres. I mean, you know, it matters in some places, obviously, like on the radio or trying to label an album or whatever. But I think people just want good music, right? They want fun music. They want music they can connect to. There's no question that Mud is that.
Right, which is good because then it frees up, you know, space for us to be creative. You don't want to you don't want to be trapped in a genre or locked in a box. Art is about expressing yourself and being creative and trying different things. So I'm all for it. I'm all for artists reinventing themselves and adding new things to each album cycle. I kind of just tend to do that naturally.
Well, I think, you know, from your last album, Gifts from the Holy Ghost, we loved Black Sheep, and I always thought that was kind of an anthem, like just an anthem for the rock and roll community. And even though, you know, maybe it's a slightly different type of song, I still get the same feeling with Mud. Like, this one should be around for a long time. It should be an anthem. It should be inspiring fans all over. So, you know, we've been talking about the sound of it, but can you kind of talk about the inspiration behind this track?
Yeah, you know, I think that the messaging has always been kind of positive, at least after at least after 28 Days in the Valley, I started being more consciously aware of the messaging I put out in my music. And Scott Stevens is so talented. We're able to do that in a way where it doesn't really come off cheesy, but it's still got an edge and it's cool. So that's an important formula to get. And I can't say that there's a formula. Actually, it feels more divinely inspired at times.
Nice. That's a pretty big thing to toss out, divinely inspired.
Oh yeah. That's how I try to live my life. And I let the Holy Spirit guide me, sort of in a sense, and my music feels a lot more substantial and deep, and it's much more fulfilling when I approach it that way. As opposed to taking all the credit myself, trying to just do it all myself, or not think of anything that I could put in there that would help people, because you have a responsibility as an artist even if you don't have a broad reach, say you're only reaching a couple thousand people, or if you're reaching millions of people, you still have a responsibility as an artist, what seeds you plant and what team you play for. And I'm all for the side of good. I want fans to get a good message. I want them to be inspired. If it could stop someone from taking their life or help them crawl out of their addictions and change the path that they're on, then I feel like that's my job and I've done something good.
Well, and that's certainly the power of what you do and the power of rock and roll in general. But just hearing you talk about that and hearing you talk about that so confidently and openly, I can kind of feel like, man, that is such a responsibility. Like that could be such a weight that you put on your shoulders. Like that this music, if it's got that right message, if it's got that positivity to it, it could do all those things you just said.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to make it like too much pressure. I just look for the opportunities when they present themselves to do that, and then the rest of it should be fun.
That's it. I love it. Well, we've been talking about Scott Stevens, and I know you've collaborated with some pretty incredible people on your music over the years. What is it about working with other people that drives you or that interests you?
Well, they might throw out an idea and it just kind of spawns a whole song. They might have there's a song on my record called Tombstone Town, and we wrote that we wrote that over Zoom, and someone had this idea for the title, and at first Scott Stevens and I were like, okay, how are we going to make this work? But it sounded like such a cool world to live in and such a cool title that it became almost like a movie scene of a song, and you'll have to hear it, and that's awesome. All I'll say about it. But it's one of my favorite songs. It's definitely I think that's a big crossover potential song.
Sweet. Wow, man. I cannot wait for that. You also work with a new friend of ours here on Loudwire Nights, guitarist Sam Colton. We actually had him on the show not too long ago talking about his new album with Patrick Stone and their band Butterside. He is just a force on the guitar. Oh,
dude, I love Sam. That's my bro. He is so kind and humble and brilliant, and he's such a ripping guitar player. And he's a total pro. So I know I'm in good hands. I love touring with him. He's a good friend. He's a good human, and he's just insanely talented. So I'm glad that you all know him over there, because he's a gem.
Absolutely, yeah. And he seems so humble and quiet. And then you take a step back and you realize, that he's just a total badass and just one of the
quiet, but he's got a wicked quick sense of humor too. He'll drop these one-liners and everyone just loses it, and it comes out of nowhere. So keep an eye out for that, and he knows everybody. It's like every city we go to, he has friends dropping off plates of sandwiches and brownies and stuff.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, listen, you surround yourself you work with good people, it seems, and I know that plays a big part in the positivity and not taking credit for everything and really kind of welcoming that goodness into your life. And we've listened to, and I love some of your special guest spots with Stained or Scott Stapp, Nita Strauss, that song Victorious I absolutely loved, and I mean, all I have to say is Slash, right? You're on Slash's new album. I mean, it's just incredible.
Yeah,
what's been surprising to you doing these special guest features?
Surprising how much I enjoyed doing a blues record and covering Key to the Highway. And that kind of lit a fire, something I might want to explore, doing more blues rooted stuff, or gospel. And because I grew up listening to all that. So that was a lot of fun, a different side of my voice I got to experience. And Slash is so cool, man. He's just a cool guy.
Yeah, absolutely. We fortunate enough to have had him on the show a couple of times talking about all those collaborations and that album. And it is such a fun album, man. And hearing you on it is really cool. Is there a dream collaboration out there for you?
Dream collaboration? I'm trying to think. He's not alive, but Elvis would have been awesome. Or maybe he is alive. I don't know. I've gone down some weird rabbit holes on the internet.
Well, hey, we'll put that out to the rock gods, and maybe that's what's going to take him out of bring him out of retirement. Is this collaboration with Dorothy?
Just kidding, y'all. Elvis is alive.
Yeah, I got to ask, is it hard to believe it's been nearly a decade since Dorothy released their debut EP?
Yes. It's hard to believe because it went by so fast. Life is short, and when you spend half of your life on the road, it's kind of all a blur, but it's so fulfilling. I get to visit all these different towns and cities and take pictures of beautiful things. I'm a massive foodie, so I like to try local food, and I jog a lot, so I'll run around and see the sights. And so I feel like I'm really living life. If you're stuck in a cubicle and you're not pursuing your dream, I'm telling you, the only thing to fear is fear itself. And if you don't take the risk and go for your dreams, you're going to regret it when you're old. So get your ass up out of that chair and start living life and go for your dreams. I had to take a risk, and it was scary, but it's working out, one step at a time, one day at a time. It's not my plan, it's God's plan. So I'm just here along for the ride.
That's it. I mean, what an incredible way to look at things. And I know that's not something you've always been able to look at, in that sort of way. Like even you said, after 28 Days in the Valley, you decided to get more positive or try to pursue that. And so you certainly, whether it's through hard times or through good times, whatever it is, like you have to confront that and realize like, well, I'm going to head down this path and I'm going to kind of sink myself deeper into darkness or bad things or whatever, or I'm going to try to pursue that path of goodness and light and whatever that is. And it sounds like for you, a lot of that is your own personal faith that has driven that.
That is, I had to have some sort of awakening, and I always had this deep yearning for the truth. I didn't know what it was, but then I found the truth and I found the way, and it all makes sense now. And more is constantly being revealed. Life is like a classroom, and what was meant for harm is usually turned for good. And we don't necessarily understand life living it forwards. When we look back, it makes more sense. And faith is a big part of that journey for me.
You're taking us to church, Dorothy. I love it.
Let's go to church.
Listeners know I'm a preacher's kid, so I always love seeing my worlds of rock and roll and faith, come together.
It's so cool. You can be spreading the message in any walk of life. You could do it, at work with your coworkers and planting seeds there. And I can do it from the stage with a microphone, and you can do it in the classroom with your friends. And it's all about, finding the truth.
Dorothy, thank you so much for hanging tonight. What a privilege to get a chat and share some time and space with you. Congrats on the release of this new single, Mud. We love it on Loudwire. I know it's only been out for a few days, but we absolutely love it. And I know it's going to be around for a while. Cannot wait to hear the rest of this record out later this year. And hopefully we can have you back on the show and hang again very soon, Dorothy.
Thank you so much.
That wraps up this episode of Loudwire Nights on Demand. Stay caught up with everything happening in the world of rock and metal on the Loudwire app and at loudwire.com.